In school, you have probably been on a field trip before. Most of the time, they are fun and just a way to relax. At my school, we do these field trips. However, they go by a different name, as they are for the most part meant to teach us something from the primary question of our year. Therefore, these are called intensives. But not all of these are field trips, as some of them involve stay-at-school activities where generally an expert comes to talk to us. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What the hell are you talking about? Well, you'll understand, as it's really complicated at first, but as I told, you'll understand more of a bit of what I'm saying. I'm Zach, and this is Storytime number 6 on February 5th, 2021. So now, I need to discuss how the storytime will be organized. I am first going to discuss what I'm going to call the global backstory, where I discuss the backstory for this entire story time. I am then going to discuss what I'm going to call a local backstory for each grade, meaning I'll do one for 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. These local backstories will discuss what questions we were trying to answer, the environment for these, our teachers, and some important information. Anyways, onto the global backstory. So, I've stated multiple times in previous story times, I go to an early college, which is basically where I get both a high school diploma and an associate's degree for free when I graduate. Our school does a thing called intensives, which are kind of like field trips but are a little different. In regular field trips, you normally just go there to have fun. Intensives are like field trips. Sometimes we do go somewhere outside of the campus, other times we might stay at school and do these, but the main purpose was to help us answer the primary question our grade has. I'll talk about each question for the three local story times, or local backstories. The intensives were directly related to our seminar class. Seminar is basically like a study hall, but often teachers might give extra work for the class itself. It's also a class where we work on intensives, so therefore intensives are for seminar. Anyways, we generally would do these activities, but then we would have an assignment. For freshman year, that included 3 writing assignments and a poster. For sophomore year, that included a poster and a book, and for junior year, that included a video and a course. Now, let's discuss freshman intensives, our first local backstory. So as I stated before, freshman year was one of my best school years, but at the same time it was very challenging. 8th grade challenged me a ton, but 8th grade just in general just went to the point it didn't help me, that it just plummeted me and my mental health plummeted during this time. Freshman year, on the other hand, challenged me a lot, but it made me stronger and smarter as a person. Our main question for freshman year was, who am I? We had 4 total intensives that I want to discuss, and all of them except the first one were related to the question. Each of them took place at the beginning of the quarter, therefore we had one in early August, early October, early January, and one in late March. Our English, world history, and math teacher controlled these intensives. Let's start out with the one that was not related to the question. So this intensive took place on August 11th, 2018. This was one of the best days of my life, as I've stated in my freshman year story time. For this intensive, we were not really here to learn a whole lot. Rather, this was actually meant for us to get to know each other, as this was literally just our 4th day of high school. And for me, almost everyone was new. We went rock climbing to get to know everyone. It was about 1.5 hour trip. Our teachers had randomly assigned us to sit with someone. For me, I was randomly assigned to sit with a kid named Michael. Now, I should mention that there are 4 people in particular I am going to be talking about that are important for this intensive. Michael is our first person. He's a really nice kid. He is about a month younger than I am, and he came from a different school than I did. Now, unfortunately, this would be the only person of the 4 I'm mentioning that I no longer have contact with, as he chose to go back to his old school after 9th grade. Anyways, we rode the bus together up there to Golden Corral and then back. I introduced him to Clash Royale, and we both became friends really quickly. I remember one time in particular where we were going back from Golden Corral, and he took 2 gummy bears with him. He swapped their heads and basically called them deformed gummy bears. This is really funny and definitely a great memory I have of him. Now, before I talk about the next person, I need to discuss how this intensive was organized. So we were split into 2 groups. One group would go rock climbing and then do some team building activities. The other group would do team building activities and then rock climbing. Then we would switch. I was put in the group that did rock climbing first. Now this group has 2 very important people I'm going to discuss. The first one is Lucas. Lucas went to my school, but we never had classes together, as I was taking like 3 high school courses in 8th grade, and he wasn't taking any high school courses in 8th grade. We also never had any classes with each other in 7th grade either. So now we finally had the opportunity to talk and just meet each other. He's pretty tall and also pretty nice. He likes memes and his favorite band is Slipknot. We met while waiting to go rock climbing as Michael was in the opposite group. Next person I'm going to talk about is probably one of the most influential friends I've ever had. His name is Dylan. Like Michael, he went to a different middle school than I did. He's very tall, but he's also really nice. He's also extremely smart, as he is actually rank 1 in our grade. Now, the way we met was rather funny. So it was my turn to go rock climbing. There were 3 difficulties for each side. I didn't know this and managed to pick the difficult one. I struggled to get on the first rock, so my English teacher asked Dylan to help me out. Dylan helped me to get on the first rock. That's all I was able to do, but I was still very grateful that he helped me out. Since then, I've always been very thankful for Dylan, and still continue to be very good friends with him to this day. In fact, he's probably already made a comment on this video as I speak, and he's a very active viewer as well. We also worked well together on the leadership activities as well. Now that the trip ended and we finished Golden Corral, I want to discuss one last person I met. Technically, I met her before the trip, but I still got a bit closer with her during the trip, and I remember talking to her while we were at our lockers. In fact, I actually think I might have seen her while my family was on vacation. So back in July, me and my family went to South Carolina for a beach vacation. While up there, we went go-kart riding. While there, I spotted a girl that was about my age who looked like she was with her parents. She was wearing a pair of sunglasses, so it's really tough for me to decide if this was her. I didn't think much, but I assumed that she was a local. But then, I saw her on the first day of school. I'm like, oh shit, this might have been the actual girl that I had seen up in South Carolina, or down in South Carolina. She introduced herself as Gabby. She was about 8 months older than I am, and she's from Puerto Rico. She's definitely seemed familiar. Now, I'm not sure if she was the girl that I met or I saw in South Carolina, but she might have, as I heard her parents speaking Spanish while up there. Now, I do not remember that much while with her while rock climbing, but after we got back to our lockers, I can't remember what joke I told her, but all I know is that she laughed. I do remember the exact thought I had, though. I think I'm going to enjoy 9th grade. This was true, as I really enjoyed that year. And I should note that she had the locker above mine. She also had the locker above mine in sophomore year, too. We don't have lockers in junior year due to coronavirus. I'm still friends with her today, so I might want to ask her about the whole South Carolina situation. That'd be really cool if I could finally get answers about that. Although, I hadn't talked to her in a while. Now let's finally discuss the second intensive of 9th grade. This was also a field trip, but it was an actual informative one. It happened on October 3rd, 2018. For this intensive, we basically toured around the city and identified historical places. It included many places like a carousel, a train, fairgrounds, some theaters, and some other old buildings. We had to jot down 3 notes for each place. This sucked as we walked a total of about 3 miles in 90-degree weather. But after this was finished, we were then separated into a group and were ordered to create a poster about one historical site from the intensive. I'm not going to state what ours was on, as it was a bit too personal. But basically, we would present these to our parents, and I'm just going to say that ours was a success. But this is not all that we had to do. We also had to write an essay for English that went along with the intensive. Our essay was on what identifies us. Since the main question for this year was who am I, this made perfect sense. We were kind of discussing who we were by going through the history of the city we went to school in. So now we were identifying ourselves by discussing what makes us, well, us. I stated that I identified myself with my personality, knowledge, and success. Looking back at it, I still agree with everything I'd said. I'm an introvert, pretty smart, and I'm on track to be successful. However, the essay was only 421 words long, which is pretty short. Most of my essays and other writing assignments for school are well over 1,000. And then you have my scripts, the completely scripted ones, are generally over 7,000 words long. This script for this video is not over 7,000. It's about maybe 6,700. But other than that, I think it was a great paper. I did this on October 24th, 2018. Now let's move on to the third intensive. This intensive was about bridges, literally. We literally talked about bridges. I'm not even kidding. We talked about historical bridges as well as ways bridges are built. After learning about this, we then worked as a group to build a bridge out of toothpicks and marshmallows, and it would have to hold something that I forgot. I worked with 2 girls on it, and it was successful. Now, I told you that we literally learned about bridges, but let's discuss figurative bridges. These are basically people that bridged you into the person that you are today. We had to write about them for a writing assignment in English. I chose my mom. This was written sometime in late January of 2019. However, if you watch my freshman year video, you would know that as a freshman, I was a very resistant and stubborn person. I also was generally not very polite and not direct. So for this, I wrote a lot of bad and overall negative things about my mom, and I deeply regret writing these things about her, as it was very immature and very unwise of me to do. So, anyways, let's talk about my final intensive this year. This was a little interesting, as we really did not do an activity, rather it was just simply an essay for English. We're talking about a memory. I chose the memory of getting back from a church camp on June 23rd, 2018, which was also one of the best days of my life. Church camp was so awful, so getting back home felt so relieving and everything felt amazing. I wrote about this and I think I did a great job. I wrote this on March 24th, 2019. It was a very successful paper and definitely a lot better than the previous one. So that is all I have for freshman year intensives. Let's talk about sophomore year intensives. Now for sophomore intensives, I had 2 major intensives and a mini intensive. Our first intensive involved us going on a 3-day trip. The mini intensive involved quality work, and the other major intensive was about healthy choices. These intensives were run by our English teacher, biology teacher, and our math teacher, although he won't last very long. I should also note that the intensives were mostly just run by our biology teacher. As I mentioned earlier, something would happen to our math teacher, and in this year was our English teacher's first year at our school. Our main question for this year was, how do I make good choices? So this is probably going to be the longest explanation for an intensive, as it was literally 3 days long, and we had a project afterwards. But there were no English assignments, thank God. So this first intensive took place between August 7th, 2019 to August 9th, 2019, as it began the first day of school. Around 1:15 that day, we were all gathered and we had to write down some notices and wonders while looking at a board game called The Game of Life. I don't remember what I wrote down, but oh well. Well, actually, I do. I have the paper. I actually managed to find the whole paper that I wrote the notices wonders. I just can't remember what I wrote. Afterwards, they discussed something about choices and shit, but I barely even listen. And anyways, it was time to pack the bus and head on out. The bus ride up there was pretty fun. Our teachers had assigned us with our closest friends. For me, that was Dylan, so me and Dylan sat beside each other. I did a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe speedrun on the way up there, and Dylan timed me. We were going to a city called Blowing Rock, which was about 2 hours away from Charlotte. We saw a sign that said Blowing Rock, and the first thing I heard was, well, boys, we've reached Blowing Cock. And then, of course, the whole bus falls into laughter. Now, after a 2-hour bus ride, which felt like only 30 minutes, was over, it was time to go where we were going to stay. I would not really call it a motel, as it was more like a camp, so I just refer to it as a camp. Anyways, we were ordered to find a group of 4. My group consisted of me, Dylan, a kid named Edward, and another student I'll just call Anonymous, as he requested that his name not be mentioned in this video. Now, the way our camps worked was that there were 4 beds, or 2 bunks per room. The rooms would interconnect with another room, which also had 4 beds. All these connected to a bathroom and a shower, meaning normally it would be 8 people to a single shower or toilet. We got lucky though, as we did not share with another group. This meant that we got both rooms for only the 4 of us. Therefore, me and Anonymous slept in one room, while Dylan and Edward slept in the other. This made the rooms a bit more bearable. I say that because the rooms for our camp were in very poor condition. So let's start off with the outlets. So in the room me and Anonymous slept in, the outlet was basically just did not work. But Dylan and Edward's outlet worked. Fortunately, Dylan brought his portable outlet with him, so all of us were able to charge our phones. I then used the bottom outlet to charge my Switch, so we were all good with that. Another reason this place was in poor condition was the ceiling panels. They probably had not been replaced in like 30 years, as Edward literally slightly tapped on one of them and it fell off. I even have the picture of him holding it. A couple of other panels had already fallen off, so it really was not a big deal. We just let it sit, and I don't even know where it's at right now, nor do I really care. Finally, let's discuss the beds, more specifically the frames. The frames were poorly built, making it very dangerous to sleep on the top bunk. This did not really affect us, as there were 4 of us and 8 beds, so we all just slept on the bottom bunk. Now, with the bathrooms, there was one room with a toilet and a sink, while the other had the shower. The one with the toilet had a full door, while the one with the shower only had a handing door that could still lock. Kind of weird, but it still worked. No, I mean, it still worked. At least, if I was to go into the shower, the door still locked, so therefore Anonymous wouldn't be looking at my penis or anything. Now we were given about 2 hours to settle into our rooms and chat with everyone else. I believe it was only 2 hours. I'm not too sure. This was like a year and a half ago. Afterwards, we then had dinner. Now I'm just going to say that the food they served at the camp was slightly better than school food. It was really bad. However, I brought my own money with me, so I just got food out of the vending machine, and therefore I didn't starve to death. Afterwards, we head into one of the rooms of the camp, although I don't even know what to call it. We were split into 7 groups. I don't remember my group, but I do remember our biology teacher discussing something about making good choices and all that other. You've heard that bullshit all the time about choices. After her speech, she then gave each group some markers and a piece of paper. Our task was to create an inspirational quote. Now, this assignment was not very memorable, as it did not really have any significance whatsoever. All I remember was that we did ours and it was successful. We didn't even get graded on this, as seminar is just a pass or fail course. Therefore, I don't even remember the inspirational quote. However, we'll do an assignment a bit later that I can definitely remember, as it did turn into a very important assignment. So now we basically were allowed to stay up as late as we wanted to, but we could not get out of our rooms past 11 o'clock, as our teachers had put a piece of tape on our door. This meant that if we were to get out, the tape would stay and the whole group would be in some big trouble. This honestly was not too great of an idea, as we could still just simply open the windows, but we really had no reason to go out past 11, so it really did not bother us. Now, our room actually intersected a girl's room. Edward noticed this by opening his window sometime around 10 p.m. and then seeing a girl looking out her window. She greeted them and they talked. She introduced all the girls she was rooming with, and Edward introduced us. Asked Edward about what he remembered about the girls, since I don't remember, and here's what he said. Well, there were 3. It was Emma, Olivia, and I think Grace. Olivia was from a city about 30 minutes away, but I don't remember where the other 2 are from. If I remember correctly, we started by saying, "Hey, what are you doing out there?" authoritatively. We talked from 10 to 3. So that's really cool and really funny too, being able to talk to people from another group. Now, both me and Edward do not remember exactly, but we believe these girls might have been in middle school. They were probably middle school, maybe between 7th and 8th grade age. Now, the next morning in the morning after, Anonymous would basically wake me up, as I kind of had trouble getting up at 7 o'clock without an alarm clock. Now, the next day, we ate breakfast and then hit the bus. Should note that we were up in the mountains, so most things took about an hour to get. Our next destination was to a research center by New River, which is basically the river that makes Blowing Rock what it is. We basically learned a bit about its history and learned some stuff about the wildlife. But afterwards, we were given 2 sheets of paper. We then had to look out on the balcony where we could see forest as well as the river. We were ordered to write down how we felt, what we saw, and draw, and you know the drill. Basically, just whatever you see, jot that shit down. This would be important, as unlike the inspirational quote, we would actually use this for something, but that would be when we got back to our school. So for now, we're just jotting down notices. So after this, we then went and did some worksheet on identifying aquatic animals that live in New River. Afterwards, we didn't hit the bus. Next thing we did was that we went to New River and actually tried to collect random animals we found while the girls went hiking through the forest. Now, before I talk about this, I should talk about that we ate lunch before that. And I'm just going to say this lunch was absolutely hilarious. There was I'm just going to say an outhouse. Well, not really an outhouse. It was just a restroom house nearby. And we went there. We found a sink. The sinks were outside. And the sink had... The water was just pure white. I'm just gonna say that might, if y'all know about the whole video where the kid says it's cum water, I think we might know where that video was filmed at, because that was really funny. I believe it was Jackson who made the joke about it. He made the reference to it, because at the time that was a pretty big meme during that time, but I don't know if y'all remember that meme, but like that was actually really hilarious. Now the way we used the now back to how we were talking about collecting animals that we found in New River. The way we found these was that everyone was to look through rocks and try to use some cup to get them. And then they would dump it into a bucket or something one person had. I don't remember the process. It's been almost a year and a half. However, I do remember being the person with the bucket thing. Therefore, everyone would dump their animals into my bucket. Now, I should note that this river was extremely easy to fall in, as there were plenty of rocks in it and just being simple to fall in general. I believe I fell like 3 or 4 times in a river. It was only like a foot deep, so it wasn't really that bad. I didn't get hurt in it, by the way. Afterwards, we counted our creatures, and then we went on a hike right afterwards. We were all wet during this hike, and I think you could tell that the planning of this trip was not on par. We did this while the girls went and collected random creatures, because it was their turn. And also, while we were hiking, another meme that was really popular during this time was Creeper Old Man. And I'm just going to say, during our hike, all of us boys we were basically singing good old Revenge. Cough, cough, Creeper Old Man. I missed that meme. Now, we were finally getting back to the camp. When we got back, we took turns taking a shower and then time for dinner. The dinner in particular was a bit interesting. What happened was that I decided to go back to our room after dinner, as I was pretty tired and really just needed time by myself. But the one thing I forgot was that after dinner, everyone was going to have a campfire from like 6 to 11. There's a volleyball net, frisbees, and a bunch of other stuff for us. However, I did not actually get to the campfire until about 8 o'clock. I didn't even know this was happening until I texted everyone in the room. I did not know where this was taking place. Fortunately, Anonymous came and brought me over to the fire after reading my message. During that time, I was just lying on my bed looking at memes. I didn't even check the time until I realized everyone had gone without me. Teachers were not mad, by the way. In fact, they seemed happy I'd finally come over. Fire really was not required to attend, but we all still went anyways. I mean, it was fun. I remember the frisbee getting stuck quite a bit, but other than that, I don't remember too much from the fire. Now is the final day of the intensive. We were finally going to go home, so we went on a bus ride for about an hour, and then we stopped at a mountain. This mountain we were all going to hike, and it was probably the best hike I ever did. I did this hike all by myself. It was great. I was the first to actually reach the top, and I was the first to get back down. Afterwards, we finished the ride home. Overall, the trip was pretty bad, but we all made good memories up there. Next week, we would be given our assignment for the intensive. From what we gathered while looking over the balcony, we were then required to write a found poem and create artwork in the background of the found poem. Mine was successful. My poem went like this. I see the natural world, filled with numerous trees, waving with the sound of the wind, and the birds chirping to the melodious tone. What beautiful and peaceful song nature offers, to greet hikers hiking the trail, so that they might hear the melody of the beautiful natural world. Stated in my last story time, the poem was shitty, but didn't matter. I passed, and still basically passed seminar, so it didn't matter. Now, finally, we're done with that intensive. Let's talk about the mini intensive we did around November of 2019. Around this time, many people on Earth Environmental had not been turning in the best work that they could, so our teachers did a mini lab about quality work. I was not taking Earth Environmental, as I had already taken it in 8th grade, however, it was for the entire grade, so I really didn't get out of this. They talked about what quality work looked like, however, they did not really do a good job of this. They often changed the definition of quality work. Sometimes it would be doing your best, sometimes good artwork, sometimes adding everything, like definition was always inconsistent. That was honestly a waste of my time, especially considering I did not even have Earth Environmental during this time. I'd have this teacher for biology the next semester, so I guess that's when this whole thing came into play. Now let's talk about the final intensive for sophomore year. Like the other ones, they were about making good choices. This one was on healthy choices. It was a stay-at-school intensive. It took place in early January. We were basically in different groups and assigned to different stations throughout the school. These stations included exercising, calculating calorie intake, eating healthy, not smoking or vaping, not drinking alcohol, and all that other bullshit you already know about. Now honestly, this intensive was pretty boring, as I just knew everything. Just that I don't do these things in practice, mainly because I don't exercise, and which is why I only eat 800 calories a day. See my freshman year video if you want to know about my diet. But anyways, After we finished everything, we were then given our assignment to write a children's book about eating healthy or exercising. In April, we were going to go to a local elementary school and read our books to 2nd and 3rd graders. Now, I don't mind writing a book because I could easily do that, and I'd probably enjoy that too. But what I do mind is writing a children's book. Normally when writing, I write in a very professional manner with lots of big words and have a serious tone. Although these writings might not be that professional, as I do swear in most of my writings. But if they're for school, I'm probably not going to swear unless the situation comes where I have to swear. But they still generally have a serious tone and use lots of big words that most 7-year-olds probably will not understand. So having to write a book using the smallest words possible was no easy task. But that was doable, as I could write the book as if it were for adults, like what I'm used to, and then edit it to fit the audience as a bunch of 7-year-olds. But the one part that really made me stress was that every page had to have pictures. A children's book is not a children's book without pictures. However, we were paired up randomly with a partner. I got the advantage of being paired up with an artistic girl. And therefore, I wrote the book and she illustrated. The book was called Let's Get Strong. It was a book about exercising. In fact, I'll just go ahead and read it to y'all because chances are y'all are also probably a bunch of 7-year-olds named Timmy. Okay, let's get strong. And also, I'm going to try to use voices in this. I'm probably going to screw up pretty heavily on this, but let's try this. Let's Get Strong by Zachary Baynard, illustrated by Riley. Once upon a time in a land far, far away, there lived 3 bears in a house in the middle of the forest. The house was home to 3 bears, Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and their daughter Millie. One day, while Papa Bear was hunting, a raccoon came to the door, attempting to steal from the bears. With all of her might, Mama Bear roared at the raccoon, and the raccoon immediately ran without taking action. "Mama, that was so cool! The raccoon didn't stand a chance," Millie said when Mama Bear walked into their house. It was. I had to use all of my might in order to scare him away," Mama Bear replied. "I don't think I could ever be that strong," Millie said. "I'm just a weakling." When Mama Bear heard this, she said, "You can, Millie. You just need to work at it." Millie replied, "But I'm not strong. I can never grow a muscle like you." "Silly Millie. Strong muscles aren't not natural. You need to exercise them in order to get strong." "But exercising is hard," Millie replied. "Not always. It can be hard when you are exercising a way that you don't like. Exercise how you enjoy," Mom Bear said. "But how do I find a way to exercise?" Millie said. "There are many ways to exercise," Mama Bear said. I just used the wrong voice there. "You can run, you can play ball, swim, many other activities. Just choose your favorite. I personally like to swim, as I can work my chest. Just remember to pick something you enjoy, as if you do not enjoy it, you won't get stronger." After Mama Bear said this, the doorbell rang. "Millie, will you go get the door? It's probably Papa Bear." Millie went to go get the door, and sure enough, it was Papa Bear. "I'm home, and I've brought our lunch," Papa Bear said. "How have you been, Millie?" "I've been doing great. Mama is teaching me about why I should exercise," Millie replied. "That's great she's teaching you about it. Exercise is important, as it helps you remember things. I have to remember the time that most fish appear so I can bring home the most fish. Not to mention, it could help you in school, as exercise result in better grades, something me and your mother really like seeing." "But I don't want to exercise by myself, as it just doesn't seem fun," Millie said. Well, you don't have to," Mama Bear replied. "You can exercise with others. It's just much more fun that way. Me and your father swim in the river every day for exercise. I want to join you too." "Well, you can join us now, as we are going to the river now," Father Bear said. So every day, Millie would go down to the river with her parents in order to exercise. 10 years later, she was still swimming down in the river with her parents. Now, Millie was very strong, and even her parents feared her strength. She could easily scare off anything, but one day she heard walking by their house. She looked through the window and saw a human walking up to the house with a gun. He was out to hunt the bears. "Mama, some guy is coming to the door. He's got a gun," Millie said. "I will go after him," Mama Bear said. So she ran to the hunter, but he was not scared at all and just simply pointed his gun at Mama Bear. Mama Bear came running back into the house, scared, but Millie knew what she could do and held out there. "Millie, no!" Mama Bear said, but it was too late. Millie was already outside with the hunter. "Who are you, and what makes you think you could come near our house?" Millie said. The hunter replied, "I'm Lucas. I'm here for our lunch. Currently on the menu, the Thursday special is 3 bears." Millie then roared as loud as she can and as scary as she could. She roared so loud that Lucas fell to the ground and started crying. "Don't even take a step closer," Millie said. "I can't. I can't. I'm too weak to even get back up. I guess I'm the lunch for today." Millie heard this and then replied saying, "Don't worry, Lucas. Anybody can become strong. All you need to do is exercise." "But how do I do that if I'm weak?" Lucas said. "Everybody is weak when they begin exercising. You just need to get stronger." "Well, alright. I'll just run and get stronger," Lucas said. So Lucas ran away from the house and began to run as his exercise. Bears were safe, and it was all thanks to Millie's exercise that the family was not eaten alive. Millie took over as the protector, and she would defend her parents from now on, and everyone lived happily ever after. The end. As you can tell, it was a pretty stereotypical children's book, and also, my throat is so dry reading that. Like, y'all better spam likes on this video, because I am literally, my mouth is gonna dry up trying to do all those voices for you. You can also tell that I was not used to this writing style, as my style normally involved writing offensive things that children probably should not reading about, like pointing a gun at someone. If we had been given more time, I probably would have edited that part out since it obviously was a little bit too scary for children. I finished writing this around mid-January, so all we had left was my partner to illustrate. She would make good progress on it until late January when our seminar teacher got arrested. I already talked about what happened there in my sophomore year Storytime, so refer to that if you want to know what happened. Anyways, because of that, we lacked a seminar teacher and made very little progress. About 1 month later, we would finally get our new seminar teacher and actually start making progress. Now, interestingly, we never actually read to any children. In fact, nobody ever finished their books at all. Deadline for this was late March, but earlier around mid-March, the coronavirus pandemic hit us and therefore resulted in us having to do school from home. Our principal waived seminar for everyone, meaning that we did not have to finish the book or read to children. So therefore, the trip to read to 2nd and 3rd graders was canceled. I'm honestly really happy we never had to finish this, as once again, I could not write for young children, as we only had 2 weeks left and we're not completely finished with the drawings. Now that's all for sophomore intensives. Let's finally discuss junior intensives. Now, I am a junior right now, but I'm pretty sure we're working on our final intensive, as I highly doubt we'll do another one. We did one throughout August and September, and then we are currently working one as of February 2021. This year would be much different than the previous years for intensives. The main reason is because of coronavirus. Due to coronavirus, we are unable to do a lot of activities we normally would get to do, but we also would do things a lot differently because of coronavirus. But we still managed to do our intensives. This was our chemistry teacher's first year at our school, so therefore our American history teacher mostly ran the intensives. Main question for this year was, where am I going? This is basically asking what are we going to do after we graduate. Of course, I already have a plan. After graduating, I plan on going to college for 2 years. Remember, I go to early college, so 2 years already off. Major in secondary education, minor in math, and then become a middle school and math teacher, as well as be a part-time YouTuber and author. But many students don't have a plan, therefore that is kind of a guide to them for making a plan. Our first intensive starts in early August, the beginning of the year. Normally, in the second week of school, we would be doing a 3-night trip at Brevard College, a college located about 2 hours and 15 minutes away from Charlotte. There we would learn about college as well as talk about colleges in general. We got back, we were then assigned a partner in a college in North Carolina and to create a poster with a bunch of information on it. Our college was UNC Chapel Hill. Then in early October, the freshmen, sophomores, and even some 6th graders at an intermediate school just across the road from us would come and examine and even grade our projects. I got to do this back in 9th and 10th grade. However, coronavirus changed this a lot. Because of coronavirus, we instead had to create a 5 to 10 minute video about our assigned college. We were all given different roles. 2 people would be doing research, 1 person would do the cinematography, 1 person would be the dude in the video, and the other would be the editor. For us, instead of cinematographer, we just let that job be for the anchorman. Instead, we had a scriptwriter in place. Our group was perfect. We had 2 remote students who did the research. I wrote the script since I obviously have a ton of experience from scripts on YouTube, an anchorman who I honestly don't know if he had any experience, and an editor who had a pretty advanced editing software and knew how to use it. Ours was successful, and we passed the assignment. Now, our next intensive would not be until early January. Normally, we would be going on to a field trip to the Biltmore House, which is the largest house in the entire country, located about an hour and a half away. It was basically built by the grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was one of the richest Americans of all time. But because of the coronavirus, we're now unable to do this trip. Therefore, we basically just had to do all the boring things instead. So our intensive was on personal finance. I already know most of this stuff here, as I just don't practice it since I don't have a constant income, as I don't have a job. Mostly just because I'm really busy with YouTube and schoolwork. So like I just don't have much time for a job right now. But I definitely do think I'd definitely do these things if I were taught. If I had a job. Anyway, we basically would use a platform called Foundations General, which teaches us personal finance by Dave Ramsey. It's pretty easy. We do almost everything in class. Anyways, this is all I have for today's story time. Intensives have played a massive role as a student of an early college high school. Some have been fun, some were boring, but most importantly, these were informative. Next week, for my 7th story time on February 12th, I plan on talking about my experience with a church camp from the summer of 2018. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next week.